everybody. Once again, this is Fred Wanko coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And as usual, I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on where you are around the world. Today, I have a very interesting topic for you. And I'm going to piggyback on an excellent reporting done on our Rise TV News again on the Ojy Okpe show. And I'd like you to see the brilliance of Rufai Oseni, Ayo Ese and Dr. Abati, and how they handled a very delicate discussion and put everything in perspective. And it goes to tell you that when it comes to Nigeria, it's all about context. When it comes to tribalism and marginalization and all these things we are fighting, it all depends on the context by which things are said and the context by which the people who heard it translate what is said. In this case, it's an interview that Dr. Okwesileze Nwodo, the former governor of, I think it's Anambra State, when Anambra State included Enugu and Anambra. And Okwesileze Nwodo made a statement alluding that two things. One is that Igbos are marginalized in Nigeria, and the other one is that Igbos built Lagos and Kaduna and Kano and many other places in Nigeria. I want you, when you get to the Arise TV story, listen to Rufai Oseni and Dr. Abati, how they addressed that issue. Then on the marginalization part, listen to Ayo Ese and even Ojy Okpe's introduction, where she quickly said that it's all about context. In this case, nobody is right and nobody is wrong. I watched it and I said I have to build an episode around this. What Dr. Okwesileze Nwodo said in the clip, even me, knowing the delicate situation of tribal relations in Nigeria, I was kind of taken aback. But I understood what he said. I wouldn't have said it the way he said it because I understand the sensitivities of Nigeria. But I think I could say that I know what he was trying to say. And what he was basically trying to say is that Igbos have been instrumental in building different parts of Nigeria, contributing their fair share in building different parts of Nigeria. However, in doing so, it's not that Igbos are the ones who built it. I think what Okwesileze Nwodo is saying here is that Igbos have not been given credit for what they contributed. But while he was trying to say that, he overstretched it. It's just like the Yoruba person who doesn't understand how to be a Nigerian will try to tell you that Lagos belongs to Yorubas and everybody else should go to hell. Lagos belongs to Yorubas. There's no question about that. But in terms of everybody else go to hell and all that, no. Lagos used to be the federal capital of Nigeria. At the time Lagos started, everybody from different parts of Nigeria, not just Igbos, came to Lagos and contributed to building it. It's a matter of live and let live. It's your land. It's your place. But other people who are in it need to be accommodated, because until it became Lagos State, it was the federal capital of Nigeria. But with all that said, my interest here is the brilliance with which Ojy Okpe, Rufai Oseni, Ayo Ese, and Dr. Abati, Reuben Abati, the brilliance with which they handle this topic. Why is it so heartwarming for me? Because Rufai Oseni, Ayo Ese, and Dr. Abati are Yoruba people, unquestionably Yoruba people. And why is it so important to me? Because it's a lesson for Igbo bigots who would hear the same thing that Okwesileze said and come out and brag about it as the 100% truth. Yes, Igbos built Lagos. No, Igbos didn't build Lagos. Igbos contributed significantly to building Lagos. And those Igbos who will come out and argue behind Dr. Okwesileze are wrong. That's what causes the fracas in Lagos, when those Igbos come bragging in that kind of way. And to the Yoruba bigots who would say that Dr. Okwesileze Nwodo is wrong, no. He said something in context. And for any fair Nigerian, they will understand the context. But for the Yoruba bigot, he'll try to frame what he said beyond what the real meaning is. Bottom line is, we're all Nigerians. We're all trying to live together. Listen to Ojy Okpe, Rufai Oseni, Ayo Ese, and Dr. Abati handle this, and I'll come back on the other side and conclude.
Joining us now is Ojy Okpe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Jinx.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning to you, viewers. Let's begin what's trending. A former Enugu State Governor, Dr. Okwesileze Nwodo, has stirred up a debate online after he stated during an interview that the Igbos created many states in Nigeria, including Lagos and Kano. Dr. Okwesileze spoke to Symphony TV, where he also addressed several issues, including what he termed as the marginalization of the Igbos. Well, let's take a look before we come back for a discussion.
Recently, the gentleman who was championing Oduduwa Republic and was incarcerated in a neighboring country has been released and is free and is traveled abroad. Now, Nnamdi Kanu, who was also championing the creation of Biafra, has been kidnapped, incarcerated, even after the courts have said that he has no case to answer. The Igbo see it as further telling them that they are second-class citizens in their own country, and there is a different treatment for them as compared to others. If they allowed the Igbos to thrive and to influence others positively, rather than hounding them wherever they are, I think the country would have developed faster and better. Igbos created Lagos, Igbos created Abuja, Igbos created Kaduna, Kano, most of the country, Port Harcourt. And when you have such people, it is the country to use, for the country to use them to the country's advantage and not to continue to suppress them.
Yes, yeah, Rufai, you know that this has caused a huge debate on social media as well, because only recently we had the Oba of Benin talk about the fact that, the Benins built Lagos. I mean, but he didn't just mention Lagos, he also mentioned other states as well as Kano. I mean, I guess it's about context. The clip that was online was shorter than what I have just played, so that you'll understand his point, which is more of, the marginalization of the Igbos. And, people were drawing up a conclusion. I believe there was an article, if we pull that up, where, at the time it was in 2007, where Nasiru El Rufai talked about the fact that it's about, the Igbos have bought about 73% of the land in Abuja, as well as, another tweet there where someone talked about the fact that the Igbos own the manufacturing sector in Lagos. But over to you, Rufai.
Okay. So I think it's for context. I understand the talk about marginalization and all of that, but also he made a mistake. It's called the fallacy of hasty generalization. The Igbos, yes, made tremendous impact in the economic landscape of Lagos. Post-colonial days, the likes of the Ojuku's father and everything. But there were other also groups that made impact. So they didn't entirely create it. It was a potpourri of many groups. If you're going to go back historically, I think my very good friend and brother Ed Kiazo wrote a book on it called The Woman Line, which is the historical antecedents of the role the Germans even played in Lagos. How they were the biggest industrialists, the glacis of this world, and what they churned out in trade of palm oil, which they were used to make lubricants for. That's the late 1800s. So the British too had trading hubs. People from different nationalities, the Takbas and other people too also had trading hubs. The Igbos too made a dent, but you can't say somebody entirely created everything, because there's an historical antecedence to that. So I think that's where he made the mistake of fallacy of hasty generalization. But you can't also deny the work of the Igbos as regards entrepreneurship. I mean, I wrote a piece recently, which was supposed to be a piece, part of a book I'd been writing but had not finished, which is about the Igbo youth entrepreneurship system. Things like the Nnewi Youth League that came up in the 40s and the 50s, where people were given the chance of trading and things like this. And things about the Nnewi Youth League snowballed into what we call the Igba Boy today, the apprenticeship system and all of that. Yeah, that made a dent on the economies of this area, as it mentioned, but entire creation, you cannot take credit for entire creation. That's why it says a fallacy of hasty generalization, because across board, many other parts, where would you put the Taye Olowo there? Although he played a role in the slave trade, which he has his monuments there on the Lagos Island where he's buried. Where would you put the likes of the Madame Tinubus of this world? They played some. Where would you put the likes of the Darochas? These were the Agudaos that returned, that were enslaved during the Kiriji and Jalumi wars. They got some inroads into Brazil. They came back as slaves. They came back to develop Lagos, the Waterhouse. As at 1912, 1913, I think that was about the only place where you could get some water and people could buy water. So where would you put the role of that? Yeah. Where would you put the role of the Eshubaye Lekos, and the water bill in Lagos? Where would you put those historical antecedents? The Igbo played a role, but entire creation, no, it's a fallacy of hasty generalization. Where will you even put the role of the Benin's, that it goes straight back, as regards historical antecedents? I'm sure that was what the Oba was trying to say, but he also made a fallacy of hasty generalization, because you also have the likes of the Aworis and the other people there. So it's a potpourri that came together.
All right. I'd like your thoughts quickly.
Very quickly, I just want to speak to what he said, the key points of marginalization, or this feeling of marginalization by Igbo, by the Igbos in Nigeria. And then he went on further to say that, the reason why we should acknowledge is that they created. I think Rufai has spoken to that. But in terms of marginalization, Oji, it's not just a feeling, it's not a conversation that's coming up for the very first time. We've heard this a number of times. And if we don't address these concerns, even though they might be whispers and now even becoming loud voices by key stakeholders, we might be having a challenge on our hands. What has been said is that we need a national identity in Nigeria where each tribe feels included. Absolutely. And feels like they are well represented at every level. We've tried different legislature, different schemes, NYSC, federal character, but it doesn't seem to have brought that needed solution to this feeling of disenfranchisement by different people and different tribes. And so one of the key things I would take away from this is that this administration must begin to work out how to bring people together in Nigeria, this oneness. If you see the vitriol on social media, especially when it comes to ethnicity and ethnic divide, it is a recipe for disaster. We have some of these people who speak about these things, who are government spokespersons, who are spokespersons of some state governors, and they're allowed to make very careless statements without any redress at all. We have to address this. There's a need for us to have a national identity where we think first as Nigerians before we start to think of ourselves as, from different ethnic groups. But this will only be addressed if everyone feels included and no one feels sidelined, especially when it comes to critical things in nation building. So I think there's some merit to what he says, and it should be thought about. It should be taken further, and hopefully we will be able to address this division that we currently face.
Well, two quick things. The first thing is that nobody can deny the fact that the Igbos have contributed to the making of Nigeria over all times. There's no doubt about that. And that is why there's this common saying that if you go to a community anywhere in Nigeria, if you don't see an Igbo man there, leave the place. It means that that place is not prosperous. But that's common apocryphal saying. The second thing is that it's not only Igbos that feel marginalized in Nigeria, virtually every group. You have active nationalism, you have had the Ijaw nationalism, you have had the Yorubas also saying that they are marginalized. Even at the time when a Yoruba man is president of Nigeria, you have had the Hausa nationalism, you've had the Fulani people also complaining about marginalization.
Yeah. That was absolutely brilliant. But now let me touch on the marginalization side and the brilliance with which Ayo Ese and Dr. Abati handled it. Any Nigerian who thinks that the cabal that rules Nigeria, out of their insecurities, have been fed to Igbos since the Civil War, is somebody who is definitely bigoted, prejudiced, and doesn't like fairness. With that said, like Dr. Abati said, to some extent, every part of Nigeria has been marginalized. But we are not talking to some extent here. For Igbos have been blatantly marginalized. And I always tell Nigerians, especially Yorubas, to take an adventure across Niger Bridge and go into Igbo land and drive. Take your security to be sure you are safe, but drive the breadth and length of Igbo land and ask yourself, with all the money that has been raised in Nigeria since 1970, is that the best the federal government can do in that region compared to what's been built in Lagos, in Kano, in Kaduna, in Port Harcourt, in Benin, in Ilorin, in Ibadan? Just go and see for yourself if you call yourself fair. Number two, like Okwesileze Nwodo said in that video, Nnamdi Kanu has been locked up in the jails of Nigeria since 2020 or 2021. Nnamdi Kanu has been authorized by a court in Nigeria to be freed because he did nothing wrong in comparison to what he's accused of. Sunday Igboho is doing for the Oduduwa agitation exactly the same thing Nnamdi Kanu is accused of doing. Boko Haram and Fulani herdsmen are running rampant in Nigeria, and instead of being arrested and put away, they are being given amnesty. Why is Nnamdi Kanu in jail? And if you're a fair-minded Nigerian, regardless of what tribe you are, How can you look in the mirror and tell yourself you're being fair to the truth if you feel that it's okay for Nnamdi Kanu to be in jail while Sunday Igboho is walking the streets and Boko Haram and Fulani herdsmen are killing Nigerians all over Nigeria? Guys, fairness is fairness. And for Igbo bigots, I want you to listen carefully to Rufai Oseni and Dr. Abati and Ayo Ese in this piece, and then tell me that there are no Yoruba progressives. When I keep talking about Yoruba progressives and my detractors keep inboxing me to say there are no Yoruba progressives, Yorubas are not against Igbos. The Yoruba bigots are not only against Igbos, they are against everybody that wouldn't let them do their Agboro style of doing things, including their fellow Yorubas. But we cannot take a brush and paint an entire people and say Yorubas are against Igbos. Just like for Yoruba bigots who talk about Igbos, you cannot, because you have some Igbo bigots and Igbo braggadocios that say certain things, and take a brush and brush. I grew up in Lagos. I don't think privately or publicly I've ever said anything that I couldn't say publicly to a Yoruba person as it relates to an Igbo person in Lagos and their relationship with living in Lagos. It's all about balance and balance and balance. I hope you enjoyed the episode. It's a short one. And as usual, this is Fred Nwankwo coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And until next time, good night and God bless.
Búburú kan kò ní ṣubú lù mí, àrùnkárùn kankan kò ní súnmọ́ ilé mi. Ìròyìn ayọ̀ létí mi ò máa gbọ́, lórúkọ Jésù ire lójú mi ò máa rí. Búburú kan kò ní ṣubú lù mí, àrùnkárùn kankan kò ní súnmọ́ ilé mi. Ìròyìn ayọ̀ létí mi ò máa gbọ́, lórúkọ Jésù ire lójú mi ò máa rí. Bí mo bá jáde, ire ni tèmi. Bí mo bá padà wọlé, ire ni tèmi. Báwọn ọmọ mi bá jáde, ire ni tiwọn. Búburú kankan kò ní yà lọ dẹ̀dẹ̀ mi, torí pé búburú kan kò ní ṣubú lù mí. Àrùnkárùn kankan kò ní súnmọ́ ilé. Ìròyìn ayọ̀ nìkan létí mi ò máa gbọ́, lórúkọ Jésù o. Ire lójú mi ò máa rí. Bíbélì wí pé Olúwa lolùṣọ́-àgùntàn mi, bẹ́ẹ̀ èmi kì yóò ṣaláìní ohun rere. Torí náà ire ni tèmi. Ire ni mo yàn, lórúkọ Jésù ire ni tèmi. Búburú kankan kò ní ṣubú lù mí. Àrùnkárùn kankan kò ní súnmọ́ ilé. Bí mo ṣe ń lọ tí mo ṣe ń bọ̀, bí mo ṣe sùn bí mo ṣe ń jí, mi ò máa gbọ́. Lórúkọ Jésù ire lójú mi ò máa rí. Lọ́jọ́ ilẹ̀ fẹ́ mẹ́jẹ, a ò ní jáde. Ààbò Ọlọ́run Olódùmarè adájú lórí mi. Lórúkọ Jésù, ire ni tèmi. Torí pé búburú kan kò ní ṣubú lù. Lórúkọ Jésù ni mo sọ. Àrùnkárùn kankan kò ní súnmọ́ ilé. Ó ní ẹ pàṣẹ ní ti ṣe ọwọ́ mi, èmi yóò sì